The alarm bells screamed through the halls of Nexus Station like angry metal birds. Kyung-min ran as fast as his 3 legs could carry him, his purple skin turning darker with fear. The emergency council meeting had been called just minutes ago, and he knew this meant something terrible was happening. The main council chamber buzzed with worried voices. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive room. Some had wings, others had tentacles, and a few looked almost like the humans from old records, but all of them looked scared. Ambassador Haewon stood at the center platform, her tall blue form towering over most others. Her voice cut through the noise like a sharp blade. "Quiet. Everyone be quiet." The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the station's air systems. Kyung-min reached his seat just as Haewon began to speak again. "We have received reports from the Outer Rim sectors. A human warship is heading directly toward our station." The chamber exploded with shocked voices. Some representatives laughed nervously. Others looked confused. Humans had been quiet for so long that many younger beings had never even seen one. "Impossible," shouted Veltar, the representative from the warrior species of Keth. His red scales gleamed under the lights. "Humans have no real warships. Their technology is centuries behind ours." Haewon raised her hand for silence. "That's what we thought too. But the reports are coming from multiple sources. Admiral Do-hyun will explain what we know." Do-hyun stepped forward. His species looked similar to humans, but with silver skin and large black eyes. He had been watching human space for years, mostly out of boredom. Nothing ever happened there. 3 days ago, our listening posts detected a massive energy signature leaving human space, Do-hyun said. His voice was steady but worried. "At first, we thought it was the equipment failure. The power readings were impossible." He touched a control, and a huge hologram appeared above the chamber. It showed a map of their part of the galaxy. A red dot was moving slowly toward the center where Nexus Station sat. "This is the human vessel. It's big. Much bigger than our largest battleships, and it's moving fast but not using any drive system we recognize." Kyung-min felt his stomach twist. He had studied humans in his younger days. They were supposed to be a weak species that barely made it to space. Most of the galaxy had forgotten about them. "How big?" asked He-1.Do-Hyun quote. His face went pale. "3 times the size of our biggest dreadnought. Maybe 4 times. And the energy output?" He paused, looking at his tablet. "If our sensors are right, this one ship has more power than our entire defense fleet." The chamber erupted again. This time the voices were not just confused, they were afraid. "That's impossible." Veltar stood up, his claws extended. "Human. Technology is primitive. They can barely travel between stars." "That's what we thought," Do-hyun replied. "But I've been checking our records. We haven't had real contact with humans for almost 200 years. We've been assuming they stayed the same. But what if they didn't?" Kyung-min remembered something from his studies. Humans were different from other species. When most beings faced problems, they asked others for help. When humans faced problems, they got angry and worked harder. Much harder. Hi-1 looked around the chamber. "How long until it arrives?" "At current speed, 18 hours. Do-hyun answered. "But Admiral, there's something else. We've lost contact with the outer settlements. 3 mining colonies and 2 patrol stations have gone completely silent." "When?" "Over the past week. Each one went dark exactly 6 hours after reporting a human ship in their area." The chamber fell completely silent. Everyone understood what that meant. The humans weren't just sending one ship. They were coming with a fleet, and they were taking out anything in their path. Hey-1 quote S blue skin turned almost white. "Begin evacuation procedures immediately. All non-essential personnel are to leave the station within 12 hours. "Admiral," Kyung-min spoke up for the first time, "what about the defense fleet?" "Every ship we have," Haewon said. "Position them in defensive formation around the station. If the humans want to fight, we'll give them one." But even as she said it, Kyung-min could hear doubt in her voice. Deep down, everyone was thinking the same thing. If human technology had advanced as much as the energy readings suggested, Their defense fleet might not be enough. Du-Hyun was still studying his instruments. Admiral, I'm getting more readings from the approaching vessel. It's broadcasting. Something. Put it on speakers. The chamber filled with a strange sound. It was clearly a voice, but speaking in the old human language that few beings remembered. Du-Hyun quickly ran it through the translation system. A clear, calm voice filled the chamber. This is Captain Jinwoo of the human star vessel Retribution. You have violated our sacred grounds and desecrated our dead. You will surrender immediately and prepare for judgment, or face complete destruction. This is your only warning. Podioe. Message repeated 3 times, then stopped. Kyung-min felt his blood turn cold. Sacred grounds? Desecrated dead? What were the humans talking about? Haewon looked around the chamber. Does anyone know what they mean by sacred grounds? No one answered at first. Then Kyung-min slowly raised his hand. Admiral, I might know. In my studies of human culture, I learned they have very strong feelings about their dead. They bury them in special places and visit them to show respect. So? The dead zone, Kyung-min said quietly. We've been mining in the dead zone for decades. What if it's not dead to them? What if those worlds were human burial grounds? The silence that followed was the worst sound Kyung-min had ever heard. The dead zone was a huge area of space that seemed empty of life. They had been strip mining planets there for 50 years, taking valuable metals and crystals. If those worlds had been human colony sites? Oh no, whispered Do-Hyun. We've been digging up their graveyards. Haewon closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were filled with a fear Kyung-min had never seen before. How many worlds in the dead zone have we mined? Over 300, someone answered from the back of the chamber. The number hung in the air like a curse. 300 worlds, 300 possible human burial sites, centuries of the dead dug up and destroyed for mining operations. Admiral, Do-Hyun said, his voice shaking, I'm getting reports from our other stations. Human ships have appeared at every major council system. They're all broadcasting the same message. Kyung-min understood now. This wasn't just about Nexus Station. The humans were everywhere at once. They had planned this perfectly, hitting every important council location at the same time so no one could help anyone else. How many ships? Haewon asked. Unknown. At least 50. Maybe more. They appeared out of nowhere, like they just stepped out of empty space. The chamber was quiet again. Everyone was doing the same math in their heads. If each human ship was as powerful as the one heading for Nexus Station, the Council was facing an enemy they couldn't possibly defeat. What are your orders, Admiral? Asked the captain of the defense fleet through the communication system. High-1 stood silent for a long moment. Finally she spoke. All ships maintain defensive positions. Do not fire unless fired upon, and send a message to the human vessel. What should the message say? Tell them we want to talk. As the representatives began to file out of the chamber, preparing for either evacuation or battle, Kyung-min stayed behind. He looked up at the hologram, still showing the approaching red dot in his studies. He had read something about human nature that stuck with him. Humans were patient when they were weak. But when they became strong, they remembered every wrong that had been done to them. And they always came back to settle the score. The red dot was getting closer. In less than 18 hours, they would find out if the humans had come to talk or to destroy everything the council had built. Do-Hyun walked over to Kyung-min. What do you think will happen? Kyung-min kept staring at the hologram. I think we're about to learn that the humans we ignored for 2 centuries are not the same humans who are coming for us now. The alarm bells had stopped ringing, but somehow, the silence was much worse. Soon, very soon, they would all discover what humans became when they had 200 years to nurse their anger and perfect their revenge. And Kyung-min had the terrible feeling that no one in the galaxy was ready for that lesson. Admiral Haewon sat in the command center of Nexus Station, staring at the main screen. The human ship was now close enough that their cameras could see it clearly. What they saw made everyone in the room very quiet. The human vessel was enormous. It looked like someone had taken a mountain and taught it to fly. Dark metal covered its surface, and strange lights pulsed along its sides like a heartbeat. It moved through space with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. "Any response to our communication request?" Heywan asked. Du-Hyun checked his instruments. "Nothing yet, Admiral. They're maintaining course and speed directly. Toward us." "How long until they arrive?" 4 hours, 23 minutes. Heywan felt sweat on her forehead despite the cool air in the command center. Around the station, their best warships waited in formation. But looking at the human vessel, their fleet seemed like toys compared to a real weapon. Suddenly, Do-Hyun straightened up. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. They want to establish direct communication." "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the bridge of the human ship. What they saw surprised everyone. The humans looked normal. They weren't monsters or machines. They were just people sitting at control stations working quietly and efficiently. A man in a dark uniform stepped forward. He was tall with black hair and calm brown eyes. When he spoke, his voice was steady and controlled. "I am Captain Jin Woo, of the human star vessel Retribution. You have requested communication. I will listen to what you have to say." Heywan cleared her throat. "Captain Jin Woo, I am Admiral Heywan of the Galactic Council Defense Fleet. We received your message about sacred grounds and desecrated dead. We would like to understand what you mean." Captain Jin Woo's expression didn't change, but something cold appeared in his eyes. "You would like to understand? For 50 years you have been strip mining worlds in what you call the dead zone. Those worlds are not dead, Admiral. They are graveyards." "Graveyards?" 200 years ago, when humanity first reached for the stars, we sent colony ships to distant worlds. Many of those colonies failed. Disease, accidents, hostile environments. Entire populations died trying to build new homes for our species. Jin Woo touched a control, and the screen split. On one side, they could still see him. On the other side, images appeared. Pictures of human settlements, families, children playing in alien landscapes. These were our people, Admiral. When they died, we marked their worlds as sacred. We recorded the location of every grave, every memorial, every place where human blood soaked into alien soil. The images changed. Now they showed mining operations. Huge machines digging up ground, destroying buildings, melting down metal markers. Your people have been mining these worlds for decades. You've destroyed cities where humans lived and died. You've melted down grave markers for their metal content. You've turned burial grounds into strip mines. Heywan felt her stomach drop. "Captain, we didn't know. Our surveys showed no signs of life, no active settlements." "Because the settlements were dead, Admiral. But that didn't make them empty. That made them sacred." Another figure appeared, beside Captain Jin Woo. This was a woman with short black hair and intelligent eyes. "I am So Young, diplomatic liaison for the Retribution. Captain Jin Woo speaks the truth. We have spent the last 50 years discovering what happened to our lost colonies. Each mining report you filed led us to another destroyed memorial site." Do-Hyun leaned forward. How did you get access to our mining reports?" So Young smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "Your computer systems are not as secure as you believe. We've been watching you for decades, learning about your technology, studying your weaknesses." "Studying our weaknesses?" Heywan asked. "Of course," Captain Jin Woo said. "Did you think we would remain the same weak species you dismissed 2 centuries ago? When you ignored us, we had a choice. We could beg for your attention, or we could make ourselves impossible to ignore." "What do you want?" Heywan asked. Captain Jin Woo stepped closer to his camera. "We want you to stop. Complete withdrawal from all dead zone territories. Full reparations for the damage you've caused, and formal recognition that those worlds belong to humanity." "And if we refuse? Then you will learn why we call this ship Retribution." The transmission cut out, leaving the command center in shocked silence. HFY looked around at her staff. They all had the same expression of fear and confusion. "Admiral," Du-hyun said quietly, "I've been analyzing their ship during the conversation. The energy signatures. They're not using any technology we understand." "Explain." "Their power source is generating energy in ways that shouldn't be possible, and their ship's hull is made from materials that don't exist in our science databases." Kyung-min, who had been listening from his observer position, spoke up. "Admiral, may I make a suggestion?" "Go ahead." "We should ask them to prove their claims. If they really have technology beyond ours, they should be willing to demonstrate it." HFY nodded. It was a dangerous idea, but they needed to know what they were facing. Open communication again. The screen flickered back to the human bridge. Captain Jinwoo was waiting as if he had expected them to call back. "Captain, we would like to see evidence of your technological capabilities." Jinwoo turned to someone, off-screen. "Taemin, prepare a demonstration. Minimum power." "Yes, Captain." So-young looked directly at the camera. "Admiral, I suggest you watch carefully. This will be educational." On their sensor screens, HFY could see the human ship powering up some kind of weapon system. But the energy readings were impossible. The power output was higher than anything they had ever seen. "Target selected," reported the human named Taemin. "One of your unmanned cargo vessels. Large enough to see clearly but no life aboard." HFY looked at the tactical display. They had 3 cargo ships in orbit, massive vessels used to supply the station. The humans had picked the largest one. Firing. A beam of pure white light shot from the human ship. It touched the cargo vessel for exactly 3 seconds. When the light faded, the cargo ship was gone. Not destroyed, not exploded. Simply gone, as if it had never existed. The command center was completely silent. Everyone stared at the empty space where a ship the size of a city block had been moments before. "Impossible," whispered Do-hyun. Captain Jinwoo's voice came through the speakers. "That weapon was operating at approximately 5% of maximum power. The cargo vessel was disintegrated at the molecular level. No radiation, no debris, no trace that it ever existed." So-young appeared on screen again. "Admiral, I should mention that the Retribution is not primarily a warship. It's a colony vessel. What you just witnessed was a defensive system." HFY felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. A colony ship with defensive weapons that could erase their largest vessels from existence. What would their actual warships be capable of? "How many ships do you have?" she asked. "Enough," Jinwoo replied. "Admiral, you have 6 hours to consider our terms. Complete withdrawal from the dead zone, reparations for the damage caused, and formal recognition of human sovereignty over those territories. And if we agree, then we can discuss the future. If you refuse..." Jinwoo paused. "Let me be very clear, Admiral. Humanity spent 2 centuries learning to survive without the galaxy's help. We learned to be strong. We learned to be patient. And we learned to remember." The transmission ended again. This time, no one in the command center spoke for several minutes. Finally, Do-hyun broke the silence. "Admiral, I'm receiving reports from our other stations. The human ships at every location have made similar demonstrations. They're all showing the same impossible technology." HFY closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked older than she had an hour before. "Get me a direct line to the Council homeworlds," she said, "and prepare a full evacuation of the station. If we're going to refuse their terms, I want every civilian as far away as possible." But even as she gave the orders, HFY already knew what the Council's decision would be. You don't fight an enemy who can erase your ships from existence. With 5% power. The humans had been patient for 200 years. Now they were done waiting, and the galaxy was about to learn what patience and anger could create when combined with unlimited time and motivation. Outside the station, the human ship waited like a patient predator, its dark hull reflecting the light of distant stars. 6 hours to decide the future of galactic civilization. High-1. had the terrible feeling that the decision had already been made the moment humanity decided to come home. The 6 hours passed like a slow countdown to the end of the world. Admiral Haywan sat in the emergency council session, listening to representatives argue about impossible choices. Half wanted to fight, half wanted to surrender, and everyone was terrified. "We cannot give in to these demands," shouted Veltar, his red scales bright with anger. "If we surrender to the humans, every species in the galaxy will think the council is weak. And if we fight them and lose, there won't be a council left to worry about," replied Kyung-min. "Did you see what their defensive weapon did to our cargo ship?" The debate had been going in circles for hours. Outside, their defense fleet maintained position around the station. 12 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, bristling with weapons and shields that had never failed in battle. Against any normal enemy, they would be unstoppable. But the humans were not a normal enemy. Du-Hyun burst into the chamber, his silver skin pale with fear. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from our homeworlds. The humans. They're everywhere." "What? Do you mean everywhere?" "Every major council system has human ships in orbit. They all appeared at exactly the same time 6 hours ago, and they're all broadcasting the same message." Haywan felt her heart sink. "How many ships?" "Over 100 confirmed. Maybe more. And Admiral..." Du-Hyun paused, checking his tablet. "None of them are identical. Every ship has a different design, different size, different capabilities. It's like they have an entire fleet of unique vessels." The chamber fell silent. An entire fleet of ships, each one potentially as powerful as the Retribution. The Council's military might had just become completely meaningless. "Time remaining?" Haywan asked. 17 minutes, Admiral." Kyung-min stood up. "Admiral, I recommend we accept their terms. We have no choice." "Never." Veltar slammed his clawed fist on his desk. "I would rather die fighting than surrender." "To humans." "Your choice," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see the main screen activating. Captain Jin-Woo appeared, looking exactly as calm as before. Behind him, they could see other humans working at their stations, completely relaxed and confident. "Your time is up," Jin-Woo said. "What is your decision?" Haywan looked around the chamber. Some representatives nodded, others shook their heads, a few looked ready to run. There was no agreement, no unity, no clear choice. "Captain, we need more time to..." "No." Jin-Woo's voice cut through hers like a blade. "You've had 200 years to learn respect. You've had 6 hours to make a choice. Time is over." He turned to someone off-screen. "Taemin, select a target, something that will make our point clear." "Yes, Captain. I recommend the battleship Thunder of Keth. It's the flagship of their defense fleet." Haywan's blood turned to ice. The Thunder of Keth was Veltar's personal ship, the most powerful warship the Council had ever built. Its shields could stop planet-killing weapons. Its armor was made from the strongest materials in the galaxy. "Excellent choice," Jin-Woo said. "Charge the main array to 15% power." 15%, Captain, are you sure?" "I want to be thorough." On the tactical display, the Thunder of Keth suddenly began moving. Veltar was apparently trying to get his ship to a safe distance. But the massive battleship moved slowly, and it was already too late. "Captain Jin-Woo," Haywan said quickly, "that ship has over 3,000 crew members aboard. Then they should evacuate immediately," Jin-Woo replied. "They have 60 seconds. Panic erupted across the communication channels. The Thunder of Keth was broadcasting emergency evacuation signals, but there was no time. Even if every escape pod launched immediately, most of the crew would still be aboard. "You can't do this," Veltar screamed from his command ship. "This is murder." Jin-Woo looked directly at the camera. "This is justice. 50 years ago you began destroying human graves. Did you ask permission? Did you give our dead 60 seconds to evacuate their burial grounds?" "Please," Haywan said, "show mercy." "We are showing mercy," Jin-Woo replied. "We're giving them a chance to live. That's more than you gave our dead." On the screen behind Jinwoo, Haiwan could see the weapons officer preparing to fire. But suddenly, a new figure appeared next to the captain. This was a woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. "Captain," she said, "perhaps we could disable their ship instead of destroying it?" Jinwoo considered this for a moment. "Very well, Yunji. Target their power systems only. Disable, don't destroy." "Thank you, Captain." Haiwan felt a moment of relief. Maybe the humans could be reasoned with after all. The relief lasted exactly 3 seconds. A beam of brilliant blue energy shot from the Retribution toward the Thunder of Keth. It struck the massive battleship directly in the center. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the entire ship simply stopped existing. Not exploded. Not broken apart. It was there 1 second, gone the next, as if someone had erased it from reality. The communication channel from Veltar's ship went completely silent. "Target eliminated," reported Taiman. "All power systems disabled permanently." Jinwoo turned back to the camera. "As you can see, our weapons don't work the same way yours do. We don't just damage ships. We remove them from existence entirely. Every atom, every molecule, every trace that they ever existed." The chamber was dead silent. 3,000 beings had just vanished from the universe in an instant. The most powerful warship in the Council fleet had been erased like it was made of paper. "Impossible," whispered Do-hyun. "The energy required to completely disintegrate matter like that. It would take the power output of an entire star." On screen, a new human appeared. This one wore different clothes and had the confident look of an engineer. "Actually, it takes much less power than you might think. We've learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level. Breaking molecular bonds is quite efficient when you understand the underlying physics. I am Min Ho, chief engineer of the Retribution," the man continued. "What you just witnessed was our ship operating at 15% of maximum power. And I should mention, the Retribution is not our most powerful vessel." Haiwan felt like she was falling into an endless hole. "Not your most powerful?" "Oh no," Minho said with a smile that wasn't entirely friendly. "This is a colony ship, designed for exploration and settlement. We have vessels specifically designed for warfare. But we thought it would be impolite to bring those to a diplomatic meeting." Captain Jinwoo stepped forward again. "Admiral Haiwan, let me explain something about human nature. For 2 centuries, you've believed we were weak because we asked for help and were refused. You thought isolation made us helpless. You were wrong. Isolation made us independent. Being refused help taught us to help ourselves. And watching you strip mine our sacred grounds for 50 years taught us that the galaxy respects only one thing: power." So Young appeared beside Jinwoo. "The Retribution carries a crew of 8,000 humans. Behind us, the human fleet consists of over 500 vessels. Each ship represents a different advancement in human technology. Each crew represents generations of humans who grew up knowing the galaxy had abandoned them." "How?" Haiwan asked. "How did you advance so far so quickly?" Minho answered. "When you have no choice but to succeed, you find ways to succeed. When your survival depends on innovation, you innovate. When you're alone in the universe, you learn to be better than the universe. We've mastered energy manipulation, matter transformation, space-time distortion, and quantum engineering," So Young added. "We've built cities in the cores of stars, colonies in parallel dimensions, and ships that can travel faster than light without using any of your precious jump gates." Jinwoo looked directly at Haiwan. "Admiral, you now understand what you're facing. The question is simple. Will you accept our terms peacefully, or do we need to provide more demonstrations?" Haiwan looked around the chamber. Every representative looked broken, defeated, terrified. The thunder of Keth had been their greatest symbol of strength, and it had been erased from existence like a bad memory. "What exactly are your terms?" she asked quietly. "Complete withdrawal from all dead zone territories within 30 days. Payment of reparations equal to 5 trillion council credits. formal recognition of human sovereignty over those territories. And one more thing. What? Membership in the Galactic Council, full voting rights with veto power over any expansion into previously unknown territories. You want to join the council? Jinwoo smiled for the first time since the conversation began. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had cornered its prey. We want to make sure this never happens again. Humanity will have a voice in galactic affairs from now on. And that voice will remember every grave you dug up, every memorial you destroyed, every human life you treated as worthless. The age of humanity being ignored is over, Admiral. The question now is whether the rest of the galaxy wants to learn from us or be replaced by us. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in absolute silence. Outside, the human fleet waited patiently for an answer, their impossible ships bristling, with weapons that could erase entire civilizations from existence. HFY realized that the galaxy had just discovered it was no longer alone at the top of the food chain, and the new apex predator had a very long memory and no interest in sharing power with those who had wronged them. The vote to accept human terms was unanimous. After all, it's hard to argue with. The docking bay of Nexus Station had never hosted visitors like these. Admiral HFY stood with the council representatives, watching as the human shuttle approached. It was small compared to their massive ship, but even this tiny vessel radiated the same impossible energy signatures that made their sensors scream warnings. Remember, HFY told the gathered representatives, we are not negotiating from a position of strength. We are negotiating for survival. Kyungmin shifted nervously beside her. Admiral, what if they decide our terms aren't good enough? What if they want more than they originally asked for? Then we give them what they want, HFY replied. Because the alternative is watching our entire civilization get erased from existence. The shuttle landed with barely a whisper of sound. When the doors opened, 6 humans stepped out. They moved with the quiet confidence of people who knew they held all the power in the room. Captain Jinwoo led the group. Behind him came So Young, the diplomatic liaison they had spoken with before. Next was a woman with sharp eyes and the bearing of a soldier. This had to be their security chief. The others introduced themselves as they approached. I am Woo Jin, strategic advisor, said a man with gray hair and calculating eyes. I will be helping to plan the long-term relationship between our species. Young-soo, lead negotiator, said another man, carrying a tablet that glowed with strange symbols. I handle the practical details of agreements. And I am Yoonji, chief of security, said the woman HFY had noticed first. I'm here to make sure everyone behaves themselves. The way she said it made clear that behaving was not optional. Captain Jinwoo looked around the docking bay, taking in the assembled council representatives. Admiral HFY, thank you for agreeing to face-to-face negotiations. It shows wisdom. Captain, we want to resolve this peacefully, HFY replied. Your demonstration was very clear. Good, then let's proceed to business. They moved to Conference Room Alpha, the largest meeting space on the station. As they walked, HFY noticed that the humans seemed completely relaxed. No weapons, visible, no signs of concern about being surrounded by potentially hostile aliens. They acted like they were visiting friends instead of negotiating with former enemies. That confidence was more unsettling than any weapon could have been. Once everyone was seated, Young-soo opened his tablet and began reading. The terms are straightforward. First, complete withdrawal of all Council forces and operations from the Dead Zone territories within 30 standard days. 30 days? Asked Representative Colven from the Mining Guild. We have major operations on dozens of worlds. It will take months to properly shut down the mining equipment. Young-soo looked up from his tablet. Then abandon the equipment. Consider it part of the reparations for destroying our sacred sites. But that equipment is worth billions of credits. And the graves you destroyed were priceless, Captain Jinwoo said quietly. We're not interested in your financial problems. Young-soo continued reading. Second, payment of reparations totaling 5 trillion council credits to be paid over a period of 20 years. The room erupted in shocked voices. 5 trillion credits was more money than some species saw in a century. Impossible, shouted Veltar, who had joined the meeting after barely escaping his destroyed flagship. The council treasury doesn't have that kind of money. Then you'll have to raise taxes, So Young said with a slight smile. Or perhaps reduce spending on military hardware that clearly doesn't work against us anyway. Wu Jin leaned forward. We've analyzed your economic data. The 5 trillion represents exactly what you've profited from mining our sacred worlds over the past 50 years. We're not asking for interest. We're simply taking back what you stole. We didn't steal anything. Veltar's scales were turning bright red with anger. Those worlds appeared empty. We had every right to mine them. Yunji's voice cut through his shouting like ice. You had no right to disturb the dead. In human culture, that's considered one of the worst crimes possible. The fact that you did it out of ignorance doesn't make it less offensive. Captain Jin Wu raised his hand for silence. The amount is not negotiable. Your species has benefited from desecrating our graves for half a century. Payment is due. Young-Su turned to the next item on his list. Third, formal recognition of human sovereignty over all dead zone territories. These worlds will be considered human space, with the same territorial rights as any council member species. That's reasonable, Heiwan said quickly before anyone else could object. We accept that term. Fourth, Young-Su continued, full membership in the Galactic Council for Humanity, with all standard voting rights plus veto power over any expansion into previously unknown territories. Veto power? Asked Kyung-min. That's unprecedented. No single species has veto authority. So Young answered. No single species has ever had their burial grounds strip mined for 50 years either. The veto power ensures that future exploration is conducted with proper respect for any indigenous life or cultural sites. Wu Jin added, we're not asking to control the council. We're asking for the power to prevent future cultural disasters like the one you've been committing in the dead zone. And if we refuse these terms? Asked Heiwan, though she already knew the answer. Captain Jin Wu stood up and walked to the large window that looked out into space. The human fleet waited in perfect formation, dark ships against the starfield like sleeping giants. Admiral, let me tell you about human history, he said without turning around. For most of our existence, we've been a peaceful species. We preferred to solve problems through discussion and cooperation. When we first reached the stars, we hoped to find friends among the galaxy's older civilizations. He turned back to face the room. Instead, we found indifference. When our colonies failed and our people died, we asked for help. We were ignored. When we requested aid in developing better technology, we were dismissed as primitive. When we sought membership in galactic society, we were told we weren't advanced enough. So we learned to be sufficient unto ourselves. We learned to solve our own problems, develop our own technology, take care of our own people. And we learned to remember who helped us and who didn't. Yunji picked up the explanation. For 200 years, we've been watching you, learning about your technology, your culture, your weaknesses. We've been preparing for the day when we would be strong enough to demand respect instead of asking for it.
That day is today, Captain Jinwoo concluded. If you refuse our terms, we will take what we want by force. The dead zone will become human territory whether you agree or not. The reparations will be collected by seizing council assets throughout
the galaxy. And humanity will have a voice in galactic affairs whether you give us membership or not. Young-Su closed his tablet. The difference is that peaceful acceptance gives you a chance to maintain your dignity and your civilization. Resistance gives us an excuse to rebuild galactic society according to human standards. What does that mean? Asked Hai-Wan.Wu. Jin smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. It means that every species that has prospered by ignoring human suffering gets to experience what it's like to be ignored when they're the ones who need help. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. The humans weren't just demanding reparations for past wrongs. They were positioning themselves to control the galaxy's future. And they had the power to enforce whatever vision they Preferred. How long do we have to decide? Asked Heywan. You don't, Captain Jinwoo replied. You've already decided by calling this meeting. The choice was made when you chose negotiation over resistance. Now we're just working out the details. So Young opened her own tablet. We've prepared implementation schedules for all terms. Dead zone evacuation begins immediately. Reparation payments start next month. Council membership procedures will be initiated as soon as the first payment is received. And if some council members refuse to pay their share of the reparations, asked Kyung-min.Yun-G answered, then those members will discover what our warships are capable of. Unlike this colony vessel, our combat ships don't have safety limitations on their weapon systems. Young-Soo handed copies of the agreement to each representative. You have 24 hours to get formal approval from your respective governments. After that, we begin enforcement operations whether you've signed or not. As the humans prepared to leave, Captain Jinwoo stopped at the door. Admiral Heywan, I want you to understand something. Humanity doesn't want to be the galaxy's enemy. We want to be its teacher. Teacher? You've grown complacent. Your technology has stagnated. Your societies have become soft and lazy. You've forgotten that evolution never stops, that progress requires struggle, that strength must be earned rather than inherited. Humanity remembers these lessons because we've lived them. We're going to share that knowledge with the galaxy, whether the galaxy wants to learn or not. After the humans left, the conference room remained silent for a long time. Finally, Veltar spoke up. They're going to change everything. Yes, Heywan agreed. The question is whether we adapt to their changes or get replaced by them. Kyung-min looked out the window at the human fleet. I don't think we have a choice. They've already decided what the galaxy's future looks like. Then we'd better make sure we have a place in. 3 months later, Admiral Heywan stood in the same conference room where humanity had announced their terms to the galaxy. But everything had changed. The room itself looked different, equipped with new technology that the humans had provided. The walls displayed star charts showing territory divisions that hadn't existed before the humans returned. Most importantly, the people in the room were different. Half the seats were now occupied by humans, their quiet confidence a constant reminder of who really controlled galactic civilization now. Captain Jinwoo sat at the head of the table where the council speaker used to sit. The change in seating arrangements had been his first official act as humanity's representative to the council. Nobody had argued. The quarterly reports show excellent progress, he was saying, reviewing a tablet that displayed information in the flowing script of human writing. Dead zone evacuation completed ahead of schedule. Reparation payments on time. Integration of human technology proceeding smoothly in 17 systems. Heywan listened with mixed feelings. The humans had kept their word. They hadn't destroyed anyone who cooperated. They hadn't enslaved any species or stolen any worlds beyond what they claimed was rightfully theirs. But they had made it very clear that cooperation was not optional. Admiral, Jinwoo said, turning to her, how are your people adapting to the new defensive protocols? Very well, Captain, Heywan replied. The shield modifications you provided have increased our defensive capabilities by over 300%. Our crews are still learning to use the new systems, but the improvement is remarkable. Excellent. And the shipyard construction on Kepler Station? Ahead of schedule. The human engineering teams have been very helpful. That was an understatement. The human engineers didn't just help. They redesigned everything from the ground up, creating construction techniques that were decades ahead of anything the Council had previously imagined. What should have taken years was being completed in months. Young Kama, who now served as Director of Galactic Development, looked up from her own tablet. We're ready to begin the next phase of technological integration. Colony ship designs for long-range exploration, improved communication networks, and enhanced medical technology. Kyung-min, who had been promoted to Human Council Liaison, raised his hand. The medical advances alone have been incredible. Human biotechnology has eliminated diseases that have plagued our species for centuries. That's just the beginning, said Minho, who now headed the Joint Technology Council. Our deep space sensors have identified over 1,000 potentially habitable worlds in nearby galaxies. With our new FTL drive technology, those worlds are now within reach. Heywan felt a chill run down her spine. Nearby galaxies. The humans weren't just thinking about controlling this galaxy. They were already planning to expand into others. How soon until we can begin intergalactic exploration? Asked Jinwoo. 6 months for the first scouts, Minho replied. Full expedition capability within 2 years. Excellent. Make sure the council species have the opportunity to participate. This expansion benefits everyone. But Haiwan noticed how he said it. The opportunity to participate, not a voice in planning or equal partnership. The humans would lead, and everyone else would follow. Just like everything else since they'd returned, Wu-Jin leaned forward. Captain, we should discuss the long-term strategic implications. Our intelligence suggests that other galaxy clusters may have their own advanced civilizations. We should be prepared for contact with powers that might rival our own. Rival our own? Asked Veltar. Since losing his flagship, he had become much more cooperative and much more nervous. Do you think there are others as advanced as humanity? Yunji answered. It's possible. The universe is vast. But if we encounter hostile powers, humanity will be ready, and so will our allies. The way she said allies made it sound more like useful resources. Heywan was beginning to understand that humanity's vision of galactic cooperation was very different from what the Council had practiced before. Speaking of preparation, Jinwoo said, it's time to discuss the next major change. The room fell silent. The humans' next major changes had already revolutionized everything from space travel to medical care. What could be left to change? We're going to share our most advanced technology with the Council species, Jinwoo announced. Excited murmurs filled the room. Advanced human technology had been carefully limited so far. The prospect of accessing their most powerful innovations was thrilling. However, So Young continued, this technology comes with conditions. The excitement died instantly. There were always conditions with the humans. Each species that wants access to advanced human technology must prove they're ready for it. Young-Soo explained. This means demonstrating scientific capability, cultural stability, and ethical responsibility. What kind of tests? Asked Kyungmin. Practical ones, Woo-Jin replied. For example, our dimensional manipulation technology. Before we teach you to fold space, you need to show that you understand the consequences of mistakes. One error could destroy entire star systems. Minho nodded. Or our matter conversion systems. Used incorrectly, they could turn planets into energy. We need to know that any species we teach will use such power responsibly. Heywan realized what the humans were really doing. They weren't just controlling current technology. They were creating a system where every species had to prove themselves worthy of advancement. Humanity would be the gatekeepers of progress for the entire galaxy. What about species that don't qualify for advanced technology? She asked. They continue to benefit from our basic improvements, Jinwoo said. Better medicine, improved transportation, enhanced communication, but the most powerful technologies require earning the right to use them. And who decides if a species has earned that right? Asked Veltar. We do, Yunji said simply. Humanity developed these technologies through necessity and sacrifice. We decide who else is ready for them. Captain Jinwoo stood up and walked to the large window that looked out into space. Where once only council ships had patrolled, now human vessels moved alongside them in perfect coordination. Let me explain humanity's vision for the galaxy's future, he said. For too long, galactic civilization has been stagnant. Species reached a certain level of technology and then stopped growing. They became comfortable, complacent, weak. Humanity never had that luxury. We were forced to keep growing, keep struggling, keep improving, or die. That made us strong. Now we're going to share that strength with the galaxy. But strength must be earned, So Young added. We won't give dangerous technology to species that haven't proven they can handle it responsibly. Young-Soo pulled up a new display showing a timeline stretching into the future. Over the next century, we'll gradually introduce new technologies as species prove themselves ready. Dimensional travel, matter conversion, time manipulation, consciousness transfer, all possibilities for species that demonstrate wisdom along with capability. Time manipulation, whispered Do-hyun. You can. Control time? Minho smiled. We can slow it, speed it up, even reverse it in small areas. Very useful for medical procedures and industrial applications. But imagine what would happen if that technology fell into the wrong hands. The room was silent as everyone contemplated the implications. The humans possessed technology that was essentially godlike, and they were offering to share it, but only with those who met their standards. What happens to species that refuse to participate in this system? Asked Haewon. Nothing, Jinwoo replied. They're free to continue as they are, but they won't have access to advanced technology, and they won't be part of the galaxy's expansion into new frontiers. In other words, Woo Jin clarified, they become irrelevant. Kyungmin looked around the room. And if we participate, humanity leads and we follow. Initially, yes, Jinwoo admitted, but as other species prove themselves capable of handling advanced technology responsibly, they'll earn greater roles in galactic leadership. Humanity doesn't want to rule forever. We want to teach the galaxy to rule itself. But by your standards, Haewon said. By the standards that kept humanity alive when the galaxy abandoned us, Yoonji replied. By the standards that turned isolation into strength, weakness into power, defeat into victory, Captain Jinwoo returned to his seat. The age of easy answers is over. The age of comfortable stagnation is over. The galaxy is going to grow whether individual species choose to grow with it or not. And those who can't keep up? Asked Veltar. Will be left behind, So Young said simply. The universe doesn't owe anyone a place in its future. That place must be earned through effort, wisdom, and strength. As the meeting ended and representatives dispersed to carry the news back to their governments, Haewon remained behind. She looked out the window at the mixed fleet of human and council ships, wondering what the galaxy would look like in 100 years. Second thoughts, Admiral? Captain Jinwoo asked, noticing her hesitation. Just trying to understand the future, she replied. Humanity came back to claim justice for your dead, but you're taking much more than that. We're taking responsibility, Jinwoo corrected. For 2 centuries, the galaxy drifted without real leadership. Species competed for resources while ignoring opportunities for growth. Important technologies were hoarded